Well, the wild coaching carousel in college football is continuing because after last week with James Franklin at Penn State getting fired, we have another massive job opening. Billy Napier, the Florida head coach, is out in Gainesville after 4 seasons on the job. In this video, we're going to break down the Billy Napier era at Florida, how good of a job Florida is in today's day and age of college football, and also, of course, some candidates to take over for Billy Napier as the next Gators head coach. But first off, let's talk about the Billy Napier era at Florida. Again, 4 years as Florida's head coach, a 22-23 record overall as Florida's head coach. That includes a 3-4 record this year. And ironically, he got fired after winning a game. They beat Mississippi State this past weekend too, but it always felt like Florida boosters were wanting to move on, and fans as well wanted to move on from Billy Napier as the head coach. His buyout is just over $20 million. This guy really did a good job of recruiting, right? He brought in guys like DJ Lagway, the #1 quarterback out of high school, and plenty of other 5-star recruits. Never really translated, though, to wins on the field, which is what plagued Billy Napier's time at Florida. The player development at Florida, I would say, was probably the biggest issue in the Billy Napier era with the Gators. So let's get into now how good of a job Florida actually is. I think Florida, it's safe to say, a lot like Penn State, is a top 10 to 15 job right now in college football. This is a program that has won 3 national titles over the last 30 years. The Athletic did a recent estimation this past summer of valuing the highest, the most valuable, I should say, college football programs. And Florida was valued at over $1 billion, which is 12th in the country and second in terms among the schools that have openings right now, only behind Penn State. They just built a brand new training facility as well. They're, of course, located in a recruiting hotbed in Florida. The Gators have signed a top 10 recruiting class in each of the last 2 years, top 20 recruiting class in each of the last 10 years. You could build basically a national championship roster with just kids from Florida, the way they're going right now. So I think Florida, of course, in that recruiting hotbed, they could do very, very well in building a championship roster. The problem with Florida, though, is ever since Urban Meyer left, they haven't found the next guy, really, for the Gators. They will now have, I should say, 5 different coaches since Urban Meyer left 15 years ago. So they're averaging like 1 coach every 3 years at this point since Urban Meyer left. There's also some uncertain leadership in the university right now because Donald Landry is the interim university president, and he was appointed in August. They have changed university presidents 3 times over the last few years. So they're trying to figure out who the next university president is right now. Dan Mullen was a pretty good coach at Florida, the last coach that Florida had, but he struggled to recruit. Billy Napier, like I mentioned before, could recruit, but he struggled to put results on the field. So Florida needs a coach who can do both and give the program an identity right now, and also retain some of the young talent they have on their roster, like, of course, DJ Lagway, like Vernell Brown, like Jaden Baugh, like Dallas Wilson, and plenty of other freshmen and sophomores right now, too. You want to retain those guys because they can be very, very good, and some of them are very, very good college football players right now. So who are the top candidates to take over this Florida job? It, of course, starts with Lane Kiffin, the head coach at Ole Miss. He's pretty much the #1 candidate on every single Florida hot board right now. And many people have made this comparison before. He is the closest thing that we have to a modern-day Steve Spurrier, who, of course, led Florida to a national title in 1996 and, of course, won a Heisman Trophy at Florida as a quarterback as well. So a quarterback who won a Heisman Trophy at Florida and a coach who won a national title at Florida. What I mean by that is that he's an offensive genius who can develop quarterbacks, and he's not afraid to talk smack either. So I think that's what Florida fans are hoping for is the next Steve Spurrier. Lane Kiffin is the closest thing we have to the next Steve Spurrier right now. He's off to a 6-1 start this year at Ole Miss. They're ranked #8 in the country right now. If the Rebels win 10 games this year, which looks very, very likely, it'll be their 4th 10-win season in the last 5 years under Lane Kiffin. They only had 4 10-win seasons since 1962 before Lane Kiffin take over. So he has this Ole Miss program reaching heights they've really never reached before. They won 11 games last year, the most in program history. He could finally be the coach to unlock DJ Lagway. It feels like Lagway, of course, has all the talent in the world, just hasn't developed into that superstar quarterback just yet. Lane Kiffin has a track record of developing quarterbacks into becoming some of the best in college football. Look what he's doing right now with Trinidad Chambliss right now, a former Division II quarterback who is now playing really, really, really well as the Ole Miss starting quarterback. Now, the one thing is with Lane Kiffin, one, does he even want to leave Ole Miss, right? This is a guy who declined the Auburn job a few years ago. He very clearly is happy at Ole Miss right now. And also, can Florida even wait around for a guy like Lane Kiffin? Because if he does lead the Rebels to the college football playoff, which looks, like it could happen, then all of a sudden he could be coaching deep into December and January. And this is a program that probably wants to make a hire in December too. So there are some complications with Lane Kiffin, but he is absolutely the number one candidate to know, and I feel like he'll be the first guy that Florida reaches out to for their head coach opening. If Lane Kiffin says no, or if they can't hire Lane Kiffin, I think the next guy they might look at is Eli Drinkwitz, the head coach at Missouri right now. He's a bit like Kiffin, a bit like Steve Spurrier as well. He's an offensive genius, very smart offensive coach who's in the SEC and has a very confident personality as well. 26-6 record at Missouri since 2023. Missouri is currently 5-1 right now and number 15 in the country. And Missouri has signed a top 25 recruiting class in each of the last 2 years and has killed it in the transfer portal under Eli Drinkwitz as well. So again, I think after Lane Kiffin, if he can't go to Florida, if he doesn't want to go to Florida, Eli Drinkwitz might be the next guy for the Gators. But again, if Missouri plays in the playoff, which is certainly possible, that again complicates things for Florida. Next up, another guy who could be coaching in the playoff is Alex Golesh, the coach at USF. So Florida might not be willing to dip into the group of 5 ranks again after hiring Billy Napier from Louisiana. But if they are willing to do it, I think Alex Golesh is certainly worth a look because he has been an incredible coach so far for the Bulls. The Bulls are 5-1 right now, currently number 18 in the latest AP poll. They're the highest ranked group of 5 team and look like the favorite to make the playoff this year out of the group of 5. One of their wins, actually, ironically, was over Florida in Gainesville this year. So I remember after that game, a lot of Florida fans were saying, hey, Alex Golesh might be the next head coach for the Florida Gators. He had back-to-back 7-6 seasons at USF in his first 2 years on the job. USF, before he took over, was a combined 8-37 in the previous 4 years combined. So this is a program that was horrendous. I mean, we're talking like 2-10, 1-11 for 4 straight years, essentially. Golesh takes over. They go back-to-back 7-6 immediately. And this year, they're 5-1 and the best group of 5 team that we have in the country right now. So he's done an amazing job in such a short time span of completely turning around what was a horrendous program at USF for a few years. Now, all of a sudden, is one of the best that we have in the group of 5. Obviously, he's very used to recruiting in the Florida area, as he, of course, coaches in Florida right now. And he seems very primed to be a Power 4 coach, probably an SEC coach very soon. And Florida could be the job that he wants to take over right there. So another offensive-minded coach in Alex Golesh that could be a great fit for Florida. How about a guy who has ties to the Florida program in Jedd Fisch, the head coach at Washington right now? He went to Florida, was a Florida alum, spent 2 years as a grad assistant under Steve Spurrier. He actually left notes on Steve Spurrier's car asking for a volunteer job, which of course he got. 5-2 at Washington this year. He went 10-3 at Arizona in 2023. Arizona was number 11 in the final AP poll that year. The one thing with Jedd Fisch is that, yes, he hasn't been incredible at Washington just yet. They're doing a pretty good job this year. And also his buyout is very pricey. It's a $12 million buyout right now because Washington didn't want to lose another head coach like they lost Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. So that buyout is pricey, but Florida could be willing to pay it with a guy that is very familiar with the Florida program. Last one I'll talk about really quickly, and this one will probably be the most controversial one. I'm sure a lot of Florida fans won't love it when I bring his name up. How about James Franklin, the former Penn State head coach right now? Now, I know saying, okay, Florida should hire a head coach who is just fired by a program that is pretty similar caliber, I would argue, to Florida. That'd be a weird move. But I also thought it was a weird move for Penn State to fire Franklin in the first place. I think James Franklin is a heck of a ball coach. And after the College Game Day interview you saw on ESPN this past week, He very clearly wants to coach immediately. This is not a guy who wants to wait around and, sit on his ass for a little bit and take some time off. No, he wants to coach. He wants to coach now, and he said, I want to win a national championship now. Florida could be the program that he could do it at. He brought Penn State to the college football playoff semifinals last year. They finished number 5 in the country. Since 2022, here are the only coaches in college football with more wins than James Franklin. Kirby Smart at Georgia, Ryan Day at Ohio State, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, Dan Lanning at Oregon. Those 4. And I would argue those 4, you could argue maybe the top 4 coaches that we have in college football at probably top 5 or 6 programs in college football. So James Franklin has the 5th most wins over the last few years behind those names: Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Kalen DeBoer, Dan Lanning. He's a very good football coach. Now, the question is, and I'm sure Florida fans want to compete for national titles, the question is, okay, James Franklin could not have done it. He didn't do it at Penn State. Can he even do it at Florida in what is a harder conference? That is a valid question, but there's no denying that he would raise the floor at that Florida program right now, which I think is something that they really are looking for. 10-plus wins in 6 of the last 10 years. Penn State did not have 10-plus wins in 6 of the last 10 years since the 1980s when they won 2 national titles under Joe Paterno. He has a 104-45 record at Penn State, tied for the 2nd most wins in program history. He won the Big Ten in 2016. And also, he had success in the SEC too, because he at Vanderbilt was very, very good. They were winning 9 games at Vanderbilt before he was hired at Penn State too. So he has success in the SEC. He has proven success in the SEC. He could be a guy that they give a call to. I'm not saying he's a top candidate by any means. That's why I listed him 5th in this list. But he is worth a look, I think, for Florida, even though he was just fired by a program of similar caliber in Penn State. As for some other honorable mentions, I think Brent Key from Georgia Tech could be a guy they look at. He's done an incredible job at Georgia Tech so far, 7-0 this year. They could make the college football playoff too. The first 7-0 record since 1966, so almost 60 years. So he's been a great coach. Another coach who's done a great job, Jeff Brom at Louisville. He brought Purdue to the Big Ten title game, which is very difficult to do. And also Louisville to the ACC title game a couple years ago. Louisville just beat Miami this past year. Jeff Brom has a 4-1 record against top 5 teams. Jeff Brom is his alma mater at Louisville, so he might not be willing to leave it, but he's done a great job at Louisville nonetheless. And another guy who's gotten a lot of buzz lately for this job and is Fran Brown, the Syracuse head coach, who of course did a great job last year at Syracuse, winning 10 games. And he's done a great job overall at Syracuse, just of recruiting at Syracuse. The one thing I'll say for Fran Brown, though, is it might not be a great year for Syracuse this year. They're probably going to go, 4-8, 5-7 maybe. I don't know if Florida's going to want to hire a head coach who just went 4-8 or 5-7, right? So I think Fran Brown, yes, he is a name to know for this opening and for any opening really in college football, but I don't know if Florida, a program that wants to compete for national titles very soon, I don't know if they want to hire a coach who's only in his 2nd year as a head coach ever, and also a guy who might go 4-8 this year either. So he's a name to know for sure, but I don't know if he's really a top candidate for this role. But let us know in the comments below what you thought about Billy Napier's firing, how good of a job you think Florida is, and of course, who should be the next Florida head coach.